when I'm 15 in grade 10, it feels like my world has been turned upside down. In September of that school year, my grandfather has an accident. We don't know his prognosis. My grandmother's taking care of him, my father's taking care of them. And all at the same time, the few friends I had at school started a rumor about me and completely froze me out. I had never felt so isolated. Thankfully, my dad has a work colleague, Hal, who says, "Do you know about the School of Rock program?" It's an after-school activity. It's not the movie you might be thinking of, but there is an association, and that it does teach kids confidence and build community through music. And Hal says to my dad, "I think it would be really good for Sophia. My son goes, he loves it. It's not affiliated with the local high schools. She won't know anyone." I, having always put musicians on a pedestal, thinking the idea of being part of a band is like the coolest thing ever, jump at the chance. I say, "Let's go check it out." We book in a tour, we get in the car, and we drive up to this seemingly almost dilapidated, converted Victorian home. The detached garage belonged to a chiropractor who had this big sign outside saying, "Please be quiet," which I could never understand because you could hear bass and drums emanating from the cracked windows at any hour. And when you made your way into the house, the front room was our office, kids just having to sign in on a clipboard, and we were allowed to roam free. Minimal supervision. I'll let you use your imagination as to what we got up to. And if you made your way further into the house, what was once clearly a living room converted into a main rehearsal space, cables and cords strewn everywhere, drum kits, keyboards, PA systems, every amp you can imagine. And if you've made your way upstairs, you would find kids lounging about, getting some homework done, and bedrooms that had been converted into lesson rooms. On that first tour, the thing that I noticed is that everybody seemed not exactly on edge, but they knew every note perfectly. Their music was their passion, and I was intimidated by how good everybody seemed to be. And I let my nerves get the best of me and said, "I can't do this." The last thing I wanted was to be somewhere else I didn't feel like I belonged. But the weeks went on, we went to see their shows, I kept thinking about it, and my parents kept coaxing me, "I think it would be good for you, I think you should try again." So eventually I say, "Okay," and we go back on a second tour. On that tour, I come to learn the general manager had changed, and the vibe shifted with it. This time, everybody seemed a lot more at ease. I got to chatting with some of the kids who said, "Come and join us." So despite my nerves, I said, "Sign me up." I start coming home from my lessons week after week for my dad to say, "I think you should sing Janis." And I'm like, "Who?" And he says, "Janis Joplin." And I'm now surprised that there's a musician he likes and respects that he hasn't exposed me to. We start listening to her music, and he just keeps repeating, "I think you should sing Janis. I want to hear you sing Janis. Her voice is well suited for yours. Let's hear you do it." So I go into lessons one week, and I ask my teacher if we can try, and she pulls up a karaoke track of me and Bobby McGee. We start going through it, and what feels like almost immediately, there's a knock on the door, it opens, and Nick, our general manager, is standing there taking up the door frame. He looks like your quintessential stereotypical Italian-American from New Jersey. Black shirt, one size too small, gold chain around his neck, faded jeans, too much gel in his hair, and he looks pissed. He says, "I don't let anybody sing Janis. You can sing Janis. I want people to hear you do this. I'm gonna go downstairs and tell Ben he's putting it in the show." Ben was the director of our Rock 201 program. It was like a 101 entry course, but for the older kids, got us accustomed to playing as a group and acclimated to our instruments. And when I get to rehearsal later that week, Ben tells the boys we have a new song to learn. And while they work on learning it, I work on perfecting it. I knew somewhere deep down this was a make or break moment for me, and I am a chronic people pleaser. So I wasn't gonna let my dad down or Nick down or myself down. We come to the weekend of the show, and we are tucked in as the intermission for the kids who know what they're doing. And I don't fault this programming. I have heard what we sound like. And parents pay us no mind as we begin to play, making their way to the bar, chatting amongst themselves as we butcher the harmonies on the Beatles' Nowhere Man. And they had given me the Black Sabbath song Paranoid in the original key, which, spoiler alert, not well suited for my voice, but rest in peace, Ozzy. And I outright forget the lyrics on Come Together because my nerves are getting the best of me. But it comes time for that final song, and I step back up to the mic. "Rusted flat in Baton Rouge, waiting for a train, and I was feeling nearly as faded as my jeans." In that one moment, the room goes dead silent. And the doors and windows are on the far end, so I can see the room as people's heads are whipping almost violently around to look at me, and I'm just trying to make my way to the chorus. "Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Nothing, don't mean nothing, not if it ain't free, you know. Yeah, feeling good was easy, Lord, when he sang the blues. You know, feeling good was good enough for me. Good enough for me and my Bobby McGee. And now the whooping and the cheering has started. People are making their way closer to the stage, but I know it's coming. If you're familiar with the song, you might be aware that the tempo changes. It goes into a double time at the end, and just as it has at every rehearsal, my drummer has lost track of that timing and tempo. And now one of my guitar players is entirely confused, despite the fact that this has happened before. The other one is attempting to get everybody back on track, and there's now black twinging the edges of my now tunneling vision as they just plow through the end. Lordy, 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 lord. Hey, Bobby McGee, yeah. And I step off stage to uproarious applause as the adrenaline hits me full force and the room just begins to spin as people are now bombarding me with congratulations. But my dad sees what's happening. He barges his way through the crowd. He says, sit down, put your head between your knees, the spinning will stop. So I listen to him, I slide my back down the wall, I put my head down, and the spinning stops. But what doesn't go away is the sensation that I had done it. I'd hit every note perfectly, and I found friends and family through the process. I was immediately pulled out of the 201, put with the kids who knew what they were doing, tapped for a select group known as house band that got to gig at local events. And my bandmates became my brothers and sisters. We would wind each other up like it was nobody's business. We were shoulders to cry on. I did the math. We spent about 24 hours a week inside that house that was slowly becoming our home away from home for about 3 years. And that didn't include all the time that we spent just practicing with our own bands at somebody's house or throwing a party. Or in the summers, we would make our way to the town carnival, where we would use the Red Hot Chili Peppers song One Big Mob as our own personal Marco Polo. So if somebody got separated or jumped on a ride that the rest of us didn't care for, you could hear them shout, "One Big Mob!" And as a group, we would reply with, oh yeah, as a way to reorient back to one another. In reflecting on this time and this family that we built, and thinking, how was I able to grab on to this experience at a time where everything else felt so out of sorts? I'm reminded of all the summers I spent going off to sleepaway camp.